Hey there, welcome to today's episode. With the MPC Live III, they introduced USB-C, and with that we can send audio and we can also send MIDI information at exactly the same time, all via just one cable. So my USB-C cable is plugged into my Mac Mini, and what I want to show you today is it makes things like auto sampling just so easy to do. Now if you're not familiar with auto sampling, it's been around on the MPCs for a little while. It means you can take your VSTs, your instruments, and essentially kind of steal them, sample them into the MPC, and then you can save them there so you can call them up whenever you want. In order to do it, we're going to start with the MPC side of things. This is a completely blank project. It contains no tracks, so we're going to just create one track. We're going to go to new track and create a MIDI track. Now, in terms of preferences and MIDI setup, I haven't changed anything on my MPC Live III since I bought it. All of the settings are just the default MIDI settings. Now, on this MIDI track, we're going to select our MIDI output port because we want to send our MIDI over to our DAW. In this case, I'm going to be using Ableton, but just keep in mind it will work with pretty much any DAW. And I'm going to move over and set this to USB MIDI port 1. Now, there are multiple USB MIDI ports, but we're just going to go with number 1. And for now, that's really all we need to do. So what we'll do is we'll hop over and take a look at Ableton. Now, a couple of things to start off with. We're going to go into the settings menu. And with link tempo and MIDI, I just want to show you again here, I didn't really do anything. This was already checked, but just make sure MPC Live III port 1, the one that we're going to use that matches to the MPC. We want to make sure the little checkbox for that is ticked, which it is in this case. Now, if we move up to our audio tab, I've set the audio output for live to the MPC Live III. The reason for that being is because we need the audio coming back into the MPC. We can then close the settings window down, and then we just need to choose a VST to play around with. In this case, I'm going to go with Native Instruments, and I'm going to load up Contact 8. Obviously, inside of Contact 8, I've got a bunch of different libraries, instruments, so we can just pick something that we want to auto-sample. And I'm going to go with the Rickenbacker bass. Let's say we wanted one of those presets that we really like, and we want to have it stored on the MPC. So I'm going to double click over here, open this up, and I'm going to go with this first one, this both pure DI preset. Doesn't really matter as long as we've got something hooked up. We can then close this window as well. Now, the final thing before we go back over to the MPC is to select our MIDI track and our MIDI from, and we're going to say all ins, and we're going to change that to MPC Live III. Port 1. It's just got to match whatever the port is to your MPC. So now we can move back over to the MPC again. Now, to start auto sampling, we need to be able to hear what we're playing around with. You'll notice at the moment, as I press this, it will be triggering that MIDI inside of Ableton, but we can't hear anything. So let's open up our sampler by double clicking on the Live 3. You can get to your sampler, and we need to choose the input source, which again is going to be USB input 1 and 2 because we're sending the audio and the MIDI via our USB-C cable. Now, as I press these pads, you'll notice we're not getting anything. The first part is that we don't have our monitoring turned on, but you'll notice as well, as I'm doing this, we're not getting any volume coming through. Now, it depends on the VST that you're playing with, but it will have a certain amount of range in terms of the MIDI and how many octaves it can go up through. On the MPC, we know that our banks control the octaves, and when we're on bank A, we're down at the lowest part, so it's not triggering. If I move up to B, still kind of the same, and as I move to C, all of a sudden, we get access to that instrument. So just keep that in mind. If you're not hearing anything, it can be because you need to move up through the octaves. Now that we've got some audio, the next thing I'd want to do is just check that audio level because it's going to auto sample from this. So it's still just sampling like you would from any other external source. And if your volume level's too low, then the samples that it creates are going to be quite low. Now you could come in and normalize them, but it's just an extra step that you don't need. So between your DAW and the MPC, you just want to balance that and make sure you've got enough input gain. Once I'm happy that the volume level is set, we can take a look at auto sampling, which is this little button here. So we press this, and it goes into our auto sampler. Now, I'm going to keep this very simple for today's episode just so that it's not too long and we can look at this kind of in real time as it auto samples. But once we go through these settings, you'll understand you can get pretty complex with this and spend as long as you need. Now, we don't need to change anything from the top. That's already set up. We know we've got the correct input source because we can hear it and we can trigger it. So the next thing would be to decide the note range, like how low and how high do you want to go. Now, we've already discovered that this particular instrument doesn't go down too low in terms of that note range. And inside of that VST, your contact instrument, you'll be able to take a quick look and see where it triggers the notes from. Now, I checked this one out earlier when we were inside of Ableton. The ideal range for this one is from around C1 to about C4. It doesn't have a huge range. Some VSTs will be a lot bigger than that. But all we have to do there then is just set our minimum to C1 That's where I want to start. And I want the maximum note of C4. So we're just going to leave it where it is. I'm going to leave extend minimum maximum notes enabled. And then we get to our note stride. So the distance between, like how many notes do you want between? And again, if you want very complex multi-sampled stuff, then you could have that sampling every single note. It's going to take a little while. Here, I'm actually going to increase this. I'm just going to have it 12 notes between. So it's going to just sample at C1 and then move over to C2, C3, and C4. But of course, you can do anything in between. So we want to set this to 12. Now underneath, we can select the velocity. I'm going to keep it to just one basic full value for this demonstration. But if you want, you can come in and you can add multiple layers of velocity. It's going to be great for your highly detailed multi-sample instruments. Just bear in mind for all of these settings as you're running through, the more notes you tell it to sample, the more layers, the more velocity, the longer it's going to take to perform that action. But it is something that you can just set up and then you can leave it. You could go and have a cup of tea, come back, and it'll have sampled that for you. Because I want to do it in real time and just show you this process, we're going to leave it like that with just one fixed velocity layer. And then as we move down to the bottom, we need to choose the sampling length. So you need to play around with this and see how long you think the note duration should be. So as you press it, it's a rough indication of how long you would like that note. Now I want them to be relatively long notes. I want it to capture that for a long note. So I'm going to make sure I set this to around 10 milliseconds, but you can experiment with it depending on the VST. But for now, we'll just say 10 milliseconds. If you need to, you can increase the tail length. Underneath, we can set a name for it. So I'm just going to call it the Rickenbacker. That will do for now. And below this, if you want any kind of looping setup, depending again on the VST, maybe it's more of like a synth and you need some looping in there, you can set that up. But I'm actually just going to disable looping. I don't want any looping on this. I'm also going to keep auto trim start enabled for now, but you can experiment with that as well. Depends on the VST. Now, once we've got all of that set up, it's as simple as pressing do it, and you're going to hear as it just samples those notes throughout the ranges. There's our first note, which is going to start down at C1. We've given it enough time for the notes. That would be C2. And obviously, it's going to go to C3, C4. I wanted to do it in real time so that you've got some idea of how long this will take. But as I mentioned, if it's very complex, you do lots of layers and lots of notes, it's going to take a good bit longer. And there we go. That's pretty much it, I think. Not sure if there's another note. It's going to get to the end. And that's it. So we've just created our first auto-sampled VST. Now I did keep this one pretty basic, but that is now created a key group using all of those samples. And you can hear we can move up and down through it. There's a couple of other things. This is currently in notes mode. So if I go over here to this little icon, if I put it into chromatic, then it's going to be more like loading it just into a plain MIDI controller without any notes being controlled. But because it's correctly auto-sampled, that means that if you want your chords, that's still going to work. Come down a little bit. And the same for all of the other modes, your progressions, that type of stuff. We'll leave it in chromatic just for now. And because we've gone to the hassle of sampling this, we now want to save it. Before I do that, I would go into the edit for the track, so the track edit. And here I can just save a couple of things so that every time I pull this instrument back up, it's going to be set up and ready to go. Now, because this one's a bass instrument, we want to make sure it's monophonic. Obviously, I've got the option of poly, so you're working with a piano, something like that. You might want to leave it in polyphonic mode, but I'm just going to change the entire track edit on a global basis down to monophonic. That means it won't allow me to trigger two samples at the same time. And for me, I like to set the amp envelope as well. So if we go over to the amp envelope, I'm going to apply a bit of release. Now you can experiment with that and see how much you want, but I want the sample to play for a decent amount of time. Just going to sound more realistic and let that ring out, but you can tweak that release to suit yourself. In order to save it, we just have to go to save. And the thing we're going to save it as is a custom key group. So we select key group. It's already got the name from when we were playing around with it before, but if you needed to change it, you can do. And then all I would have to do is choose a location, somewhere I want to save that as an instrument, and I'll be able to pull it up time and time again. It's really cool stuff, and it's going to allow you to really expand the instrument libraries on your MPC. Something that I highly recommend. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.